Welcome back. This is the Lazy Money Machine podcast with Erik ten Have and Graham Brown. Today is an episode whereby we're going to look at or listen to a little audio clip that I found online, and let's play it first, and then we'll talk about it.
I think school is more the bigger enemy because they want you to be an employee, to work for the government, to save money, pay taxes, and invest for the long term in the stock market. You got to be crazy today. That's the worst advice possible. Where are the jobs? In America, you come up with a student loan debt, the worst type of debt possible. And with AI, artificial intelligence coming on and robots coming on, like, the Uber drivers, I pray for them because pretty soon you don't need an Uber driver, you just need a robot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book many times cited and quoted by many investors and many teachers. And he brings up a point about the general way that we raise our kids and tell them to, get a job, pay taxes, buy a house. Your house is an asset. Get out of debt, so pay off your house, and then become happy after that. But he says, especially the example of the Uber driver at the end, jobs might not be around the way we think they are now.
They're not, are they? Especially for those guys. I think the key point with Kiyosaki is what people don't really know until somebody tells them. There's a big difference between schooling and education, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Like he mentions in that clip, Erik, that schooling, it has an agenda, isn't it? Which is to systemize you, to put, make you become an employee, to pay taxes, to do all this, to be safe, to be secure. Whereas education is really about equipping yourself with the skills to survive in the world, right? So you can be well schooled but poorly educated. I think that's the problem. We have a system which really encourages that, right? And I wonder, you've got 3 kids, right? I have one son, and they're kind of an age now where we're thinking about their future, just approaching teen years, Would you consider the route that you took in in schooling, school, high school, university, would you consider that was appropriate for this generation now?
Well, I still believe that being in education teaches you analytical skills that are invaluable. So I think the main thing that I got out of my, especially university education, I think is I had a degree in business, which I did in the Netherlands. And even though it was a degree in business, it hardly helps me do much today, except for the fact that I know how to get information. I know how to analyze things. I know how to build good spreadsheets, which is very useful. So the sort of the skills and the mindset, I guess, that I got in education is very useful for me and very valuable for me. But the exact subject matters that I studied, statistics, physics, things that were in my curriculum, a lot of that is not. I don't use that anymore. And the funny bit is, many people say that, right? I've had this education and a lot of what I've learned I don't use anymore, yet we're still accepting the fact that that's the case. It's so weird.
Well, there's no alternative for most people, is there? That's the problem. What do you do if you don't send your kids to university? People are going to look at you funny, right? Oh, your kids didn't go to college? What's wrong with you?
Right, correct. Yeah, absolutely. There's another part in the same interview which I'll try to dig up here, which I can listen to, which is this is also Kiyosaki talking, and this is how he solved it.
I just knew school was bullshit as a young kid. I learned most of my life, my financial education, playing Monopoly. You just play Monopoly, you'll be a rich person. And the formula for great wealth is 4 greenhouses, rent a hotel. Yeah.
So there you go. So the Monopoly is obviously an example, but we are not being financially educated.
Yeah.
And that even surprises me. There is like, there is, how do you call it? Like world studies in school. People learn about, health, in biology, they talk about how you stay healthy, good food, whatever. All these other skills are being taught, but there's no subject about financial literacy or financial education in high school or in university.
Well, maybe, as he says, there's a reason for that, right? Because they want you to become an employee, right? Because, not everybody can live a fulfilling life. We have to have people who are going to empty the dustbins and flip burgers, right? So that's what society wants. And I think that's why it trains people that way. And you have to think about as well, who's actually doing the teaching.
Yes.
Right. I mean, these are people who are employees, right? So what do they know? I mean, if you are financially educated and you become financially independent and free, you're not likely to be in the school system teaching kids, are you?
No, that's true. Yeah, they don't have the I guess the reference or the perspective, I guess, to teach this, right? So, but it could be, I mean, like with anything in school, you could bring in an expert, right? And I've taught a few times in the schools of my kids about entrepreneurship and about what I do. If you would want to, there's a way, right? If the teachers that are in school are not the guys that are doing it, you could bring in other people to do this. And Kiyosaki is a conspiracy theorist on this, right? He thinks the government wants us to do like this, right? He actually mentioned that in the same interview. He says,
you learn nothing about money in school. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? It's a state-controlled institution, is education. And the state wants stupid people, even though you have a PhD. We can talk about this all you want and what people are doing. The most important question for the listener today is, what are they doing? Are they bitching and moaning, or are they joining the rich?
Yeah. See, that's his point. Yeah. So he thinks it's conspiracy.
True. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing about conspiracy theories, Erik, is that to an extent they're true, some of them, right? Because there isn't like a master plan. There isn't like some evil, Dr. Evil sitting behind the screen planning all this, right? But, what happens is that the system shapes education, right, to be like that, because that's what it wants, right? If the school system starts producing people that we can't employ, or there's some problems, then there's trouble, isn't it? And they change it. So it ends up being a reflection of what the needs of employers are, right? Big companies. So in a way, there is a conspiracy theory, but there's not like one guy doing it. It's kind of like the system doing it, and there's no individual like running the show.
No, and I think this also proves the point of the work that we and a lot of other people are doing, right? I mean, this part of education and this part of knowledge sharing is so lacking in formal education that you'll have to create alternative channels to tell people about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the point of education, isn't it? It's education doesn't finish when you finish school. Education really starts at that point, right? And that's why you've got to go out. And it doesn't necessarily come from these traditional channels. It comes from getting involved in groups, masterminds, networking groups, events, and so on. Doing all of that, because that's where you're really going to get educated, surrounding yourself with people who have done this stuff, right? That's where you learn.
Yeah, and one other thing I think is to go out and just do some things that other people say works, right? That was one of my big revelations when I really started getting into property. I always knew that that was the way that many people acquired like wealth or income or passive income, but only until the point that I actually started doing it, I started to find out, what all these guys are saying is actually true, and it does work like that. But you have to take the big step, I think, of daring to go and just try something. Which, it can be scary, and it's also not that encouraged, I think, in normal formal education to jump into something unknown and just go and try to figure it out afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. But then look at what, exactly. We can go on about education system, right, and why it's broken and so on. But the key here is taking control of your own life, right, and making it work rather than relying on other people. I think that's the key message from Kiyosaki. Whether or not you believe in the conspiracy theory, whether or not you believe in the education system, the key is you got to take control and do it yourself.
And we're here to help you. We hope to welcome you again in the next episode.